Hare Krishna. Good morning from Sridham Mayapur devotees. These are our daily adventures in Srimad Bhagavatam. And today we have a very amazing story to share. It's a story about when Krishna and Balaram became brahmacharis. So we'll begin with some prayers. Gora graganya gana gota goloruharam Goranga Gura Tamago Pyada Kolpa Briksham Gopala Gada Ratidam Yati Singha Gora Govinda Deshi Kavaram Satatam Namami Uttama Adama Kichuna Bachila Jachi Adile Kakola Kahe Premananda Emona Goranga Hridoya Dadiya Bola Bhaja Goranga Kaha Goranga Laha Gorangera Namure Jai Jana Goranga Bhaje Se Hoyamara Pranare Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Panchakalpatarubhascha Kripa Sindhubhya cha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadha Shivasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Good morning from Sridham Mayapur devotees. Madhupati Prabhu, nice to see you here. So today we have a very special, unusual topic in front of us. We're going to hear something about how Krishna and Balaram became brahmacharis. And if we get to that point, I'd like to speak something about the 5 habits of a good brahmachari. So in our last discussion, we left off with hearing something about the situation in Vrindavan after Nanda Maharaj returned and the gopis were crying in separation. And Krishna sent some letters. And the gopis and Nanda Maharaj and Mother Yashoda, Nanda Maharaj had Mother Yashoda write the letter. They sent a package of letters to Krishna and Balaram in Mathura. So my Guru Maharaj, in the book Mathura Meets Vrindavan, he speaks about what he called Atma Krandana, or the crying of the soul. And he says this is Gauranga's Swarup, always crying. Ha prana preshta Krishna, ha hari haram. In that crying mood, he's chanting. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. He says this is the crying of the soul. You have to chant Hare Krishna in this mood, feeling separation from Krishna. Mahaprabhu was chanting Hare Krishna in this mood. This is Mahaprabhu's teaching. The more you cry for Krishna, the more your love increases for Krishna, and the more you feel his presence in the core of your heart. That is external separation with union in the heart. So in our last couple of sessions, we spoke something about the esoteric meaning of the word vipralamba and how it means external separation but internal union. Guru Maharaj goes on, he says, that is viraha, vipralamba bhav. Krishna crying for Krishna is Gauranga. Krishna crying for Radha is Jagannath. Madhurja Rasaganaiti Murti Jagannath. Lord Jagannath, the condensed form of conjugal mellows. Krishna went to Mathura. He's not coming back, and the Vrajavasis can't go there. So what to do? The only alternative is to send a message of love. Rupa Goswami has written 2 kavyas, poetic books on this subject, Uddhava Sandesh and Hansadutta. They are very high books. So let's continue with what happened after Nanda Maharaj and the Vrajavasis sent this package of letters to Krishna and Balaram in Mathura. Jiva Goswami speaks about this in the Uttarakanda of the Gopal Champu, in chapter 8 there. He says that when Krishna and Balaram got the letter from Vrindavan and heard the news, they were relieved of worry. Now, if you remember our last discussion, and the letter, it was written on behalf of Srimati Radharani, which spoke about 3 words, madness, epilepsy, and death. You may feel a little disconcerted or surprised. How is it that Krishna and Balaram are relieved of worry when they get this letter? Well, those letters were very, very heavy letters. Madness, epilepsy, and death. The situation of Srimati Radharani. But they were relieved because they could understand the Vrajavasis are still alive. Because they can't live without Krishna. They don't want to live without Krishna. And when Nanda Maharaj returned alone and couldn't face them, just hung his head down because Krishna wasn't with him, and he went to his quarters alone and locked himself up, unable to face the residents of Vrindavan, they decided, better we kill ourselves. And someone came and gave a message to Nanda Maharaj that they were going to do that. And it was only then that he came out. And at that time, then he told them Krishna sent some gifts. They became very disgusted when they heard that. You think our love is so cheap that we just want Christmas presents, birthday presents? You think that's love? That's not love. We want Krishna. And then Nanda Maharaj encouraged them, no, Krishna sent these things. And when Krishna returns, he's going to be happy when he sees that you received them with love and you remembered him to these articles. So they accepted it. So they were almost on the point of suicide. And so this is why Krishna and Balaram were relieved of worry. But Jiva Goswami says there was a new problem now in Mathura. Now Krishna and Balaram were there without Yashoda and without Nanda Maharaj, and they're with these 2 strange people who are called Devaki and Vasudeva. This is the mother and father of Krishna, according to some consideration. That's another topic. How were they strange people? But Krishna and Balaram didn't know how to relate to them. He didn't know how to make Mother Yashoda laugh or Nanda Maharaj. He didn't know what kind of things they liked. They didn't know exactly even how to talk to them. They were very stiff and awkward. Do I call her Mata? I'm not going to call her Mata. That's Mother Yashoda. Should I call him Bapa to Vasudeva? But that's what we call to our father, Nanda Maharaj. So seeing this, that they didn't know how to relate to Devaki and Vasudeva, Vasudeva and Devaki had a talk, and they decided that we should bring Rohini here. Rohini is one of the wives of Vasudeva. And Rohini, we'll see throughout these pastimes of Krishna as we travel from Vrindavan to Mathura, and then Mathura back to Vrindavan, and then from back to Mathura again, and Mathura to the ashram of Sandapani Muni, and then to Dwarka, and then finally to Kurukshetra. We'll see that Rohini is a constant. She's something which is always present there, because Rohini represents both Braj Leela and Mathura Dwarka Leela. She's the wife of Vasudeva, but she's also the friend of Yashoda. So Vasudeva decided to send a messenger, and he thought the best thing is we should send it to Sananda and Nandana, the younger brothers of Nanda Maharaj. Why did he write to them? Jiva Goswami doesn't explain, but perhaps because Vasudeva has some connection with those 2. They met with him in Mathura. Now you may ask, why didn't he write directly to Nanda Maharaj? Vasudeva was always concerned that Nanda Maharaj may disagree, that Nanda Maharaj considers Krishna his son. But he knows that Sananda and Nandan, they have some connection with him. They have some love for him. So that messenger took the letter and went to Vrindavan. And in the letter, Vasudeva told Sananda Nandan, he said, I didn't think about it when you were leaving Mathura. And he's speaking to Nanda Maharaj, but he's contacting Nanda Maharaj through Sananda Nanda. And this is the way of high-class persons. This is the way of Braj. This is called Kurukshetra. Kurukshetra means indirect speech. And the gopis or the cowherd boys, they say something, but they actually mean something else. But another type of Kurukshetra we see through the sense of sending messengers, or through the sense of giving respect to another person when your real intention is to give respect to Krishna. For example, the gopis in the Venu Geet, they offer prayers to Giriraj, Hantaya Madhura Bala Haridasa Varyed Rama Krishna Charana Sparasha Pramoda. They offer these prayers that, oh Giriraj, Krishna and Balaram are always putting their feet on you. Now, why are they thinking of Balaram? Balaram makes them very shy. But our acharyas say that this is Kurukshetra. They're speaking some double talk because they want to hide their love for Krishna. In a similar way, the gopis, they have messengers. And they worship Katyayani Devi, they worship Surya Dev, they worship Lord Shiva in the form of Gopishwar Mahadev, the Vrajavasis worship Indra. And what is the purpose of all that worship? It's Kurukshetra, to hide their exclusive love for Krishna. And they're hiding it by showing that they're worshipping someone else. But actually their purpose in worshipping Indra has always been to get enough rain so the grass will grow, so the cows will eat the grass, so they can milk the cows and they can offer the milk products to Krishna and Balaram, so that Krishna and Balaram will be healthy. And that's always a desire of the Vrajavasis when they worship any of the devatas. So Vasudeva in this letter, he said that I didn't think about it when you were leaving Mathura, but it would be really good if Rohini could come here. And Rohini, when she heard that, Rohini became very disturbed. And Rohini thought to herself, Jiva Goswami explains the thinking of Rohini. Agyapatya didrikshapyata navasutta yorjatu hatun nasakya sayam govindamata bhata katamiva vaheyata masuyatu tasmadi kaika nitradyavayayam apiched bhagham ekam tanyorme Puyam jive nakuryadaparamiha vidistayaham nistarayam. She thought, Agya pata the drikshapi. I can't give up the order, the agya of my pati, my husband. That's very, very bad. And also, how could I give up the desire to see Krishna and Balaram? So I have to go to Mathura. My husband's ordered me. It's very important. The wife should always follow the order of the husband. Krishna Kun, I hope you're listening. And she also had this strong desire to see Krishna and Balaram. She thought, but Sayam Govindamata Batam Katam. Eva Vaheyatama Suyatu. How can I give up Yashoda? And she thought to herself that if the Creator were to take my body and take each limb off of my body, this would be good. Let me die like this. Better I die than give up association with Yashoda. This is such a beautiful description. On one hand, Jiva Goswami is describing here the Lokik consideration that Rohini is considering, that I have the order of my husband. More than that, I want to see Krishna and Balaram. I want to serve them. But there's something else which stops her from going. And that's association with Govinda Mata. Here she's considering that Mother Yashoda, she's the mother of Krishna. She's not thinking Devaki is the mother of Krishna. She's saying, Sayam Govinda Mata. Govinda Mata, Yashoda is the mother of Krishna. So this indicates to us that for higher Vaishnavas, their association with the devotees is sometimes a consideration which even precludes or puts aside the consideration of association with Krishna himself. So seeing the look on Rohini's face and she's looking confused, what can I do? Yashoda spoke to her very dear friend. And Jiva Goswami describes her words. Tubhyamayam chamanye vidir adita vapu pranam apyakam eva pratyekam pittu yugmam yarihana bidaya kinchid alokayava tasmad nuspunyata meyadi na savidatam ha tayo kartum ishte shiste ramambatahi swayam abhigamanad eva mam jivayashu. She said, don't worry. She says that the Vidur, or the creator, Vidur means, is a name for Lord Brahma. He's a creator of things. Tubhyam mayam chamanye Vidur adita vapu pranam apyekam eva. He divided this one vapu, this one body, which is our body, you and I, into two. But we have pranam apya ekam. We have one life air. There's no distinguishing between you and I. And therefore we don't distinguish between Krishna and Balaram. And she addresses Rohini as a mother of Balaram. Shiste ramam batahi swayam. She said, if I can't go and see them by my ill luck, then you should go there and bring me to life. This is the beauty of the relationships in Vrindavan. There's no tinge of envy. The gopis, they push it. They see someone else can bring more pleasure to Krishna than they want to push that person forward. Mother Yashoda is not thinking, why is it Rohini gets to go and I don't? This is not fair. Why will she get to see Krishna and Balaram and not me? No, you should go there. And by doing that, Eva mam jiyayashu, you'll give life to me by going there. And she's not just saying it from the lips, just thinking, well, let me be really nice to Rohini and say something she's going to appreciate. There's no diplomacy. Yashoda is so simple. What's on the inside is the same as on the outside. She really means it. That she's going to get so much happiness if you go. So then, the astrologers picked an auspicious moment. We were speaking about this yesterday. And they sent Rohini, but they didn't send Rohini alone. What did they do? They took some different bullock carts and they piled them up with different gifts. Favorite foods, Mother Yashoda and all the Vrajavasis were cooking for Krishna and Balaram, and they brought some of Krishna and Balaram's favorite clothes. And they filled those carts up with all those things. And then as Rohini began to leave Vrindavan to go to Mathura, they followed at a distance from her. And Jiva Goswami says they were embracing her, although she's at a distance, how can they embrace her? They were embracing her with their choked throats. They were crying. Oh. And so then they were lamenting and crying, and finally they returned home. And before they separated, Yashoda told Rohini, she said, you please send me some news of the boys and give this message to Devaki. And she gave a little letter to Devaki. And what was Yashoda's letter to Devaki? It's the most inconceivable thing. If we want to enter into Vrindavan, Rupa Goswami says you have to meditate on one of the associates of Krishna in Vrindavan. And what does it mean to meditate on them? Some description is given of their color of their complexion and what they do and this and that. But that's not enough. We want to meditate on their heart. We want to meditate on their dealings with the other devotees. So what was Yashoda's message to Devaki? Jiva Goswami describes. Avakayor abhidari loke sambhavita jata samprati sa prakatibhu devaki putina tattayad beda. She wrote this letter. She said, my dear Devaki, everybody understands avakayor abhida, that there's, you and I are a beta. We're non-different. And that non-difference has manifested in the form of Krishna. Sam prapti, sam prakati devaki putre natatra yad beda. Natatra yad beda. So there's no difference if we both say he's my son. Mother Yashoda, as we spoke before about the words exchanged between Nanda and Vasudeva, and how each one of them has a strong sense of mamata. Mamata, again, means that sense of possessorship. That I, Krishna, belongs to me. He's my son. And that's the nature of love. That mamata, as we spoke in our last session or the session before, is a quality of all relationships. Someone thinks, this is my friend, this is my wife. But in the material world, those feelings manifest in the form of upadis. Our mamata here manifests in the form of designations. And it's external. And, oh, you're my wife, and therefore you have to wash the dishes, and therefore you have to do whatever I say. And if you don't do that, then someone becomes angry, or someone even becomes violent in this world. You're my daughter, and I love you because you're my daughter. But if you join the Hare Krishna movement, or you do something that I don't like, then I hate you, and you're not my daughter anymore. So the love and the relationship of the Vrajavasis, their mamata is Shuddha. It's based on Shuddha Priti. It's pure love. And there's no tinge of envy. There's no tinge of any upadis, any mundane designations. And we see this in Yashoda. Yashoda has the most intense mamata. On Saturday, tomorrow, in the evening, Indian time, we'll speak something for the devotees at the Bhakti Center about who's really Krishna's mother. And we'll hear about Yashoda. No, Krishna's my boy. He's my son. When someone tries to tell her that Krishna's not her son, she can't tolerate that. But when she speaks to Devaki, Yashoda has such a heart. She has so much empathy. She understands the mood of Devaki. And she tells him, you and I, we're non-different. And that non-difference is manifested in the form of Krishna. And so there's no problem if we both say he's my son. It's astonishing. If we want to enter into Vrindavan, we need to cultivate relationships like this. Mm-hmm. So what happened when Rohini arrived in Mathura? Jiva Goswami describes, Rohinya brajata krita gamanaya govinda ramoyada vanditva milatam tadaspuradasav ucharya sodityapi sputi sachaparam tayomanasi nasvasyapi tasya babu prem no ritir iyamna buddhi vishaya kakshapi pashad bhutam. So when Rohini arrived there in Mathura, then Govinda Ramo Yada Vanditva Militam, when they met, immediately they offered their respects of Vandana to Rohini, because she's a superior person. And again, this is a sweetness in Braj. When Krishna and Balaram offer respects to Mother Yashoda and Nanda Maharaj, it's not with awe and reverence or shaking, but it's with great affection, and it's natural. So when Rohini arrived in Mathura, Krishna and Balaram immediately offered their respect. Sometimes neophyte devotees, they can't conceive how we can give respect to a superior and at the same time have an intimate relationship of friendship. We can learn this from Krishna and Balaram's dealings with the Vrajavasis and Rohini. So when they met her, Jiva Goswami says an amazing thing happened. Yasodati api spurti. They had a spurti of Yashoda. When they saw Rohini, they saw Yashoda. So this is the nature of bhakti. When we see something which reminds us of the beloved, the devotee feels great ecstasy. It reminds them of Vrindavan. And Krishna and Balaram, when they see Rohini, it reminds them of Yashoda. And Yashoda, they directly see her there. And not only that, something else happened, Jiva Goswami said. At that time, manasina sryasapitasya bhu. That in the mind of Rohini, Yashoda also appeared there. Because Krishna and Balaram had so much love for Yashoda. When they saw Rohini, they saw Yashoda. And then Yashoda appeared in the mind of Rohini. Rohini could feel their love. He says, in this way, prem no rita iyam na buddhi vishaya kashapi pashadbhutam. This is Adbhuta. This is the Adbhuta, the astonishing nature of prema, which is prem no rita iyam na buddhi vishaya. It's beyond your buddhi, beyond your intelligence. You can't understand it. And Jiva Goswami goes on. Vislesha vasara purasara jam charitram Krishne sabhaspam anushinvati tajjananyaha prapyachatam anubalastaruvachasatra smasmims tad ekamayatam anubhavayanti. That when Krishna fell at the feet of Rohini, then at that time, Yashoda appeared in his heart. And Krishna started crying. And then Rohini also started crying. Because they're remembering the mood of Mother Yashoda. This is the nature of a real messenger. This is the nature of a real representative of Guru and the Vaishnavas. So Krishna was crying. And he asked about what Mother Yashoda was doing. And Rohini began to tell Krishna what Mother Yashoda was doing there. And then Balaram began to speak to Rohini. And Rohini then, she told Balaram, she said, there's no difference between myself and Yashoda. As Yashoda said, the creator, the vidya, separated our one body into two bodies, but we still have one life air. This is the intimacy between the Vrajavasis. There's no tinge of envy. There's no tinge of malice, no tinge of pride, no tinge of mundane upadis. It's pure priti, Sudha priti, pure love. So then, a day or so later, Jiva Goswami implies here perhaps that by saying a day or so later that Rohini must have spent a long time with Krishna and Balaram and just locked herself up. And then, oh yeah, I got to go see my husband, that guy, all right. And so she went to see Vasudeva. And she also met with her co-wives there. Now what happens when you return from a distant place, you return from India and you go back to St. Petersburg or Budapest or wherever you're from, and the devotees, they say, well, what's going on in Mayapur? How are the devotees there? How is Naranjan Maharaj? How is Bhaktivedanta Maharaj? And you have to speak something. So Rohini, because she's also very simple, she wants to speak what's in her heart. And she wanted to speak to them about the love of the Vrajavasis for Krishna. And so she started to say something about that. Rohini started to speak up for Yashoda. You should understand the situation that Yashoda is in right now. She started to speak to Vasudeva and Devaki about that. And Jiva Goswami describes her words to Vasudeva and Devaki. Vivasmanya sneha nama padartha. Vivasmanya sneha nama pradartha Shriman soyam rajate goshta eva tasmin uchar gopa ragyam ataso putro vaschetat pasange kvadosha. That you should know Vivasmanya sneha nama pradartha, that affection personified in this universe, that's Krishna when he's in Vrindavan. That's affection personified in this universe. And that affection is manifested there in the form of Yashoda. So if Krishna is your son, putro vas chit ta prasangika the dosha. What's the fault of dosha for Yashoda to also claim Krishna as their son? And when Vasudeva and Devaki heard that, they weren't so happy. They became quiet. And the other wives, the co-wives of Rohini, they just laughed and said, Rohini, You've been eating too much yogurt and milk from Vrindavan. It's made you intoxicated. You become greedy for that yogurt and milk of them. And that's why you're saying these words like this, because you're hoping they may hear about it and they'll send you some of that yogurt and milk, which is so nice. We've heard about that yogurt and milk here. Kamsa was very attached to it. And he was having Nanda Maharaj pay some tax with it regularly. And this is why you're speaking like this. Your words are not suitable. Now, a very interesting thing happened at this point. Rohini, she could have argued with them, but she didn't. Rohini could have used so much logic and reason and evidence, strong evidence, to show the superiority of the love of Vrindavan for Krishna and Balaram. But she saw they're not qualified. They can't understand. Understanding their minds and internally feeling so much pain in her heart for Yashoda, Rohini was quiet. And then, after a few more days, Vasudeva spoke up and said, we have to have the sacred thread ceremony for Krishna and Balaram. Now that they're over 12 years old, we have to do this ceremony. And so Rohini at that time, although it's a big function and everybody should come for that, it's a very, very important thing. When there's an Upanayanam, Sanskara, you'll see in Orissa and West Bengal, it's a big, big thing, and people invite all their friends. It's kind of like a bar mitzvah they have for in the Jewish tradition when someone comes of age. So that Upanayanam is something like that, and everybody comes together. But understanding the mood of the residents of Mathura and the residents of Vrindavan, Rohini didn't suggest to bring the people of Vrindavan to Mathura. It's incongruous, it's incompatible, it won't work. So Krishna and Balaram, Jiva Goswami says, they were actually eager for this ceremony. And they understood that the members of the Yadu dynasty there in Mathura were a little indifferent to the people of Braj in their minds. They're very sweet, and they spoke nice words to Nanda Maharaj, and they sent gifts for them and things, but really they thought, these are just farmers, these are just village people, and they're sentimental, they're attached, because the members of the Yadu dynasty, they have philosophy. They have this gyan, they have this knowledge that Krishna is Bhagavan. And these Vrajavasis, they're very sweet, but they don't really understand the position of Krishna, that Krishna's God. So understanding that the members of the Yadu dynasty, although they speak sweetly to the residents of Vrindavan, they're not actually so close to them. And understanding that if they come there, the residents of Vrindavan, it'll be painful for them, because they're not going to get some proper respect, and there's going to be maybe a little competition. Even Krishna belongs to us, they're going to be thinking in Mathura. So Krishna and Balaram also decided we can't invite them. Although all the citizens in Mathura were invited, everyone was there. But at the same time, Krishna decided we have to send a message to Bappa, to Father, to tell him, how can we just have this ceremony without telling him? It'll be terrible. So Krishna and Balaram sent a letter through Sudama. Sudama is a garland maker. And Jiva Goswami particularly mentions that Sudama sent that letter. They sent the letter through him. Why through Sudama? Well, Sudama has connections with Vrindavan through the flowers. Those flowers that he was making into garlands for Kamsa before his untimely departure from this world by the hand of Krishna, his timely departure. Sudama was collecting those flowers from residents of Vrindavan, so he had some connection there. So they sent that letter with Sudama to give to Nanda Maharaj. And that letter is a very sweet letter. Jiva Goswami describes the words of Krishna and Balaram. Tata means father. Tata swa praktar eti yadunrit bakuloja yagya sutreni putri kuryur mam swarta hetor aham apintu bahistad vidadyam hridanyat. Gyatin vo drastam ishyamaham iti cha yaya prag avocham bhavatsu samhetam ham ta jivam katam itadadasam twat tanujasa kuryam. He said, "Oh Tata, oh Father, tomorrow the members of the Yadu dynasty, they're going to have this Yagya Sutrena Puti. They're going to accept us as their sons by the sacred thread ceremony. And by doing that, they're going to show us to be Kshatriyas." So this is problematic. Krishna and Balaram understand this is problematic for two reasons for Nanda Maharaj. First of all, this Yagya Sutrena, this sanskar, this pavitra, this samskara of accepting the upanayana samskara, of accepting that sacred thread, that identifies that person as their son. So this is another internal reason that Jiva Goswami is alluding to. He doesn't directly say it, but this is one reason why Vasudeva and Devaki want to do this. Look, we want to establish once and for all, Krishna and Balaram really belong to us. And by doing this Upanayana and Samskar, by giving Krishna and Balaram the Yagya Sutra, or that Brahman thread, then we're going to show to the world Krishna and Balaram actually belong to us. Because that Upanayana Samskar, that's performed by the parents. So Krishna and Balaram understood this is not going to be a very palatable thing for Nanda Maharaj to hear about. So they wrote this letter to him. And they said, tomorrow they're going to do this, and by doing this, they're going to show that we're Kshatriyas. He said, but you should understand, Father, this is just bahis. He says, tu bahis tad vidadyam hridanyat. This is just external, bahir. But internal, hridanyat, I'm still a cowherd boy. I'm still one of you. I'm a gwala. I'm your son. How can I do anything different than being your son? I'll always be your son. And he told Nanda Maharaj, Makridvam mama yagasutra kuttakalabena nivinatam asmin asmi tu yusmadaya suridam artaya badda prabha tasman matanu rupa mat savayasam gayatra diksha maha sanchat braja rajatina mama tatpurnam swayam tanyatam. He said, my dear father, Makridvam, don't lament that Mama Yagya Sutra, you can't be there present when I get this Yagya Sutra, this Brahman thread. He said that in Mathura, actually I hide my real nature because they're not qualified to understand my love, my exclusive feelings for the residents of Vrindavan. But I do that for the benefit of your friends. He says, Yusmadaya Suridam Mati, your friends, your Suridat, your friends who are the members of the Yadu dynasty. So in other words, Krishna is speaking such sweet words to Nanda Maharaj. These are your friends, and this is why I'm doing this thing. Internally, I have to hide this, but externally, I agree to this thing. So, Father, don't feel bad. Tasmad mattanu rupa mat savayasam gayatra diksha maha. You should perform this ceremony where I get this Gayatri diksha. At the same time, you do it. Sanchacha braja rajatina mama tatpurnam swayam tanyatam. You do that with my Braj friends because they're not different from me. So you also want to claim that Krishna is our son, or you also want to do this Upanayana Samskar. So you can do that at the same time there in Braj that Vasudeva and Devaki are doing it here with us. And when Nanda Maharaj and Upananda and the others, they saw that letter from Krishna, they thought to themselves, oh, Krishna remembers us. Krishna actually loves us. He's not indifferent to us. We were already thinking that we should do this ceremony, which is recommended for the Vaishyas, the Kshatriyas, and the Brahmins, all three, they're Dvija. They're known as the twice born. They perform this Upanayana Sanskar. It's only the Sudras who don't. The Vaishyas also do, and traditionally in India they have different colored threads. So Upananda and Nanda Maharaj, they decided, so we'll do this ceremony just as Krishna suggested, and we'll use Krishna's friends or his representatives who are one with him internally, but externally they appear to be something different. So I'm feeling frustrated. I wanted to speak something today and I didn't get to my topic. We wanted to speak something about how Krishna and Balaram became brahmacharis. But we're going to have to continue that discussion in our next session, which will be on Sunday. And why it is, Jiva Goswami says a very interesting thing, why it is that Krishna and Balaram accepted Sandapani Muni as their guru. He's a Shaivite. And he directly says, why didn't they accept Vyasadeva? Vyasadev's a Vaishnava. Why didn't they accept Vyasadeva as a guru? Why did they accept Sandapani Muni? And what happened when Krishna and Balaram became brahmacharis and moved into the ashram of Sandapani Muni? So I'm going to stop here, and I'd just like to request the devotees who are taking part. I want to thank everybody, Chaitanya Charan Prabhu, Sadhu Marg Prabhu, nice to see you here. Naveen Prabhu, Madhupati Prabhu, and others. If anyone has any reflections here, you please type them in. There's a few comments here I'd like to read out right now. And then we'll also ask the devotees who are sitting here in the room if they would like to also share some reflection, because this is a Vaishnava Sangha. Vaishnava Sangha means that we're hearing something. Amongst the associates of Srinivasacharya, Narahari Chakravarti Thakur describes in one place that every day they would come together and they would read all these different books. And one person was a designated reader, and they would make comments, and then the devotees would share, Parasparana Katanam, they would go back and forth. And that creates a very powerful Vaishnava Sangha. It's not, Katha is not one person who's the big person just giving everybody else instructions and chastising them. That's not the mood of the Vaishnavas. Rather, if someone's qualified to hear, then they come close to that person. That qualification is there has to be some intimacy which comes through some degree of faith in the person. And if we have more faith in that person, then pranipat pariprashna and seva, we begin to inquire in an intimate way. We render service and we surrender ourselves to that person, and that person becomes guru. So Chaitanya Charan Prabhu has given a reflection here. He's saying how Gaur Govinda Maharaj speaks about crying, that you can't cry. Guru Maharaj sometimes would say that yes, you should cry for Krishna, but you can't cry because you're crying for Maya. We have to cry one way or another. I remember when one of my godbrothers fell in love. He was traveling with Guru Maharaj in a foreign country. I was also there. And he was doing his laundry and hanging it up on the line outside. And the devotee whose home we were all staying in had a beautiful young daughter. And she was also doing laundry at the same time. And there was some looks exchanged, and he fell in love. And finally he came to Guru Maharaj and said, Guru Maharaj, can I marry her? And Guru Maharaj said, yes, you do. And then Guru Maharaj told him, Baba, she'll make you cry. And indeed she did. I was staying with him sometimes. She made him cry, and probably he made her cry also. So Guru Maharaj used to make this point that if you don't cry for Krishna, then you're going to have to cry for Maya. So we learn to cry for Krishna by hearing from the Vrajavasis, by hearing about Rohini and how she's crying for Yashoda, and how Krishna and Balaram are crying. And when we hear those things, and we render service to that katha, we render service to the Vaishnavas, then that crying comes to our heart. Madhupati Prabhu has offered a comment. He said, you touched upon the high importance of devotee association. Probably the worst aspect of the present calamities is the almost complete withdrawal of devotee association. And he says, therefore your merciful kathas are so important. You give your blissful association by giving us wonderful kathas. Thank you very much. Madhupati Prabhu is flattering me. But it's a fact. Recently, we commented, I think in one of our previous sessions even, how in the Gopal Champu, before Krishna's appearance, it's mentioned that Balaram appeared first. He's the older brother. And he's Balaram. Balaram means that personality who's always Ram. He's always blissful. Always. But Balaram was very unhappy. And although the Vrajavasis were also, they were happy because Balaram had appeared, still there was something that wasn't quite right. And they weren't so happy. And Balaram himself was not so happy, but when Balaram would climb onto the lap of Yashoda, who happened to be pregnant, then Balaram would become fully blissful. So in a similar way, we have so many things. We have the holy name, we have service to Guru, we have even the worship of the deities. But there's something during this time of this pandemic which is missing in our lives. And that's freely being able to associate with the devotees. And so as Madhupati Prabhu has pointed out, we can associate with the devotees by hearing Krishna Katha. At the same time, it's not the same. And I think that's implied in your comments also. We want to be able to give a hug to those devotees. We want to be able to take prasadam with them. We want to see them directly. But at the same time, we can associate with Srila Prabhupada through his Katha. We can associate with our Gurudev. We can associate with the Vaishnavas through this Hari Katha. It's a very important thing. Sadhu Marg Prabhu has asked a question. What is the difference between material mamata and spiritual mamata? We tried to touch on that a little bit in our discussion, that mundane mamata has these mundane upadis, or mundane designations, whereas this spiritual mamata is different. That spiritual mamata, mundane upadis, means that there's some envy there, and there's some violence. Mundane upadis actually indicate a kind of violence, that I love you, you're my sweetheart and things. And why do I love you? Because you're dear to my body. The husband loves the wife because she's providing sense gratification for him in the form of sex life, in the form of nice foods and sweet words and things. So I love you for that, but really that love is a selfish love. But the Sudha Vatsalya Priti, or the pure parental love of Yashoda and Nanda Maharaj, it has this mamata, it has this divine mamata. And there's no tinge of envy, there's no tinge of selfishness, and therefore we see that Yashoda had no hesitation to send Rohini to Mathura. She wasn't envious. Why do you get to go and see Krishna Balaram and I don't? It's not fair. She's not thinking like that. Actually, she's becoming completely ecstatic. And so this is the nature of someone who's free from envy. The nature of mundane upadis is that we want to control things, and sometimes we even see this in the realm of the sadhak devotees in this material world who are rendering service. This is my service, and I want this service. It belongs to me, and I want it for myself because I'm going to become glorious. I'm going to become famous by giving class. But if I see someone else who can give better classes, who knows Sanskrit better, who can pronounce things better, knows more stories, who's a better speaker, I become envious of that. So there's some mamata in that service attitude. This is my service, but this is a mundane mamata, and we should give that up. And therefore we see the sadhus, they're so happy. There's no envy. They want to empower everyone. They want everyone to speak Krishna Katha. They want everyone to come close to Krishna. Anil Prabhu has given a reflection. And Pranams thanks a lot for the nectarian Katha. It's just like an oasis in the desert. So Krishna, for some reason or another, and to comment on Anil's reflection and Madhupati Prabhu's reflection, for some reason or another, Krishna has arranged this lockdown. Don't think that this is just because of some mundane persons or something. Don't look externally, but look internally. Why has Krishna done this? And one thing I feel very confident to say, one confident reason I can see why Krishna has done this, is to increase our hankering to associate with the devotees, to increase our appreciation of the devotees. This is a wonderful result of this terrible lockdown time. So I'm going to stop there now with the devotees online, unless someone else has something they'd like to share. Go ahead and type it in. And I want to ask the devotees here in the room if anybody has a reflection you'd like to share, any thoughts. something touched your heart about today's katha. Anapayani Radha would like to share something.
I was really impressed to hear about Rohini and Yashoda, and how Yashoda, she was so happy that Rohini is coming, and she didn't have any envy that she's coming but not her. And it's going, yeah, thank you. And it's so beautiful. It's not just her words, it's her real feeling. Also Krishna is like her life and soul. And I actually was really surprised, because I was thinking, even if you have no envy, so although you will feel something because you have mamata, but Yashoda, she of course she was happy for Rohini. And also another thing, that when Rohini came to Mathura, how her presence remind Krishna and Balaram immediately of Yashoda. And this is, and I really like your comment that this is how we should be representative, or our Guru Maharaj, our spiritual Guru Parampara, that only by our presence, our words, we immediately remind people of the person who is behind us. So even if they don't know him, so they can feel that something behind this, somebody behind it. Thank you so much.
So that oneness with Guru, that takes place when we become one in the heart. Not just that here's a representative of Bhakti Vigyan Maharaj, and he's memorized, this devotee's disciple, he's memorized all the things that Bhakti Vigyan Maharaj has said, and therefore by coming close to him I'll be able to come close to Bhakti Vigyan Maharaj. Who can memorize all the information anybody speaks in this world? It's not possible. But there's some oneness when in the heart, when we acquire, when we render service to that personality, that person comes to our heart, and that's what we feel when we come in contact with those devotees. So thank you. It's a nice comment, Anupani. Appreciate that. Bindu Sundari Mataji, Hare Krishna. Anybody else here in the room would like to share a reflection? Okay. So we're going to go ahead and stop here, and we will be back again on Sunday with another discussion about this pastime. We'll go on with our reading from Srila Jiva Goswami's Gopal Champu, and in our future sessions we're also going to explore a little bit from a number of other books, including Uddhava Sandesh, Hansaduta, Mathura meets Vrindavan, Vrindavan Lilamrita, Harivamsa Purana, a number of different literatures and commentaries in the 10th canto about what happened when Krishna was there in Mathura, and when he went to Avanti Desh to get initiated by Sandapani Muni. And did he remember the residents of Vrindavan? Did he feel anything for them? What happened when he became a brahmachari? Why did he become a brahmachari? Krishna is a brahmachari? Doesn't make sense. We'll hear and discuss more about that on Sunday. So I want to thank all the devotees very much for giving us your Sunday, even though it's only online. I hope that day will come again when we can give hugs and take prasadam in person with devotees. We're hankering for that. Grantara Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Samaveda Bhakta Binda ki jai.